Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from the Colonial Dungeon, this is the Court-Martail Podcast! Introducing your host for this evening, he has a bald spot on the top of his head, and he weighs in tonight at a number you don't need to know. He is the Colonial Loudmouth, Sean McCarty!
And welcome once again to another spectacular edition of the Court-Martail Podcast, a gold rush where every title is on the line. Every match has a title match because this is the first and only time you're going to hear that tonight. Unlike at Clash of Champions 2020, it is the long-awaited review. I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, and with me, as always, is the one, the only, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, the man of the hour. I might have said that twice, but regardless, there's only one Skyler Greenberg. Welcome to the show.
Here we are the champions.
Everybody's a champion.
So far, they said it can't be done.
It wasn't done.
And we're right here, still number one, still number one, still number one.
Well,
so
number one,
we are,
it's true.
We are the champions.
We are number one in the hearts and the minds of every single person who tunes in and listens to this show. And we thank you for being a part of this. Do not forget, subtle plug, don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that bell button with whatever move you like the most. I don't care which wrestling move it is, any move you like, but feel free to like. Just let us know you're out there. We are trying to push more for more interaction, and I believe in each and every one of you, and we're hoping to do some more live streams too. But in any event, I did not mean to hijack this and turn it into a promo.
I feel like you just ruined my intro for 2012 theme of Night of Champions.
Was that 2012?
Yes, 2012. That was the night John Cena faced CM Punk for the WWE title, and it ended with both their shoulders on the mat.
Oh, yes. Yes. Was that the Triple H match? The one where he was reffing?
No, it was just John Cena versus CM Punk with Paul Heyman.
Oh yeah, okay, right, yeah. I'm in a different year. Triple H wasn't involved with that at that time. I'm in 2011.
Yep. I'm in about 2012.
I'm in with, but still.
But we're not here to talk about pay-per-views from 8 years ago. We're here to talk about pay-per-views in 2020.
Yes, and the pay-per-view of choice is Clash of Champions, where every single title was on the line. How many times did we hear that over the course of the night, Sky?
Too much.
Too many. And so we are going to break it down match for match. What were your overall impressions of this show?
So this pay-per-view was a lot of good, bad, and ugly. And it had an equal mix of all three. I don't think there was anything spectacular on the show.
Agreed.
I don't think there was anything so offensive that it made us both want to stop watching it.
Right.
It was just a show.
Yeah, it was a very solid B pay-per-view out of WWE. What they really excel in are these average B shows. They pump out a good chunk of them over the course of the year, and then they try to do these really big events, and they end up really shit in the bed. I would say the Clash of Champions, in my opinion, was better than SummerSlam.
No doubt.
By a lot. Just for the fact that it wasn't a roller coaster of hot garbage.
Right. They kept the hot garbage to a minimum.
Yeah. They held back on the crappishness that WWE tends to be. So we start out with this triple threat ladder match. AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy versus Sami Zayn. What were your thoughts on this match?
This was a good way to start off the show with a ladder match featuring a bunch of spots. And I enjoyed it even if there was a bit WWE formula multi-man matches.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to know what you're getting in a match like this. You know, it's a WWE ladder match. You kind of know how they're structured at this point. just based on, you know, where they go and what kind of stunts they do. And it's always nice to see. There was a lot of creative bumps and spots here that they took. That was really fun.
Yes, there was. And my God, Sami Zayn's back.
Yeah.
He took several shots from the ladder, either being thrown into ladders or being hit by ladders. And my God, his back by the end of this match.
Yeah, it really did. And Sami also, just on a side note, does have quite a solid beard. I had to make a note of it, that he's put a lot of work into growing that beard out.
I don't know. It felt wild, man. I didn't like it. I prefer clean cut Sami Zayn.
That's partially why I like it, though. I like that he's kind of just like, it adds to almost a scummishness about Sami, you know, an appearance, so it makes you dislike him just a little bit more. I know that's super small psychologically,
but it's on purpose. Like, his fronts were an ugly army green color.
Yeah. And
I hated it, and I recognized that this is just Sami Zayn trying to find a way to piss people off. And hey, it worked.
It did, yeah, it does. And this was and this match, here was the thing that I had about, I want to put something of a hot take about ladder matches and the start of this pay-per-view. And you are free to disagree with me, Sky, but let me post my case. Having a ladder match where it's going to be a bunch of crazy spots and it's going to be a bunch of high-impact moves and really exciting, but mostly spot heavy and not psychological, and really getting this adrenaline pumping type of match to start a show, to me, feels like you're diluting the crowd for the remainder of the show. And so where some spots in this match that they have some of those mechanics in later matches and they don't feel as important, they don't feel like they may have as much impact because they were in such a high impact match like this to start off the bat. And that's no critique of any of these guys. It's more of a critique on just where this match was put. Because I understand. I would have preferred this to be closer to the end of the match. A, because it's the Intercontinental title, like the end of the show. Because it's the Intercontinental title, and the Intercontinental title always seems to open the show. And I know that there are a lot of great Intercontinental title matches, but I just, for the sake of placement on the card, I like the idea of opening up a show hot, but it doesn't have to be the really important guys or even mid-card guys to do that.
I mean, it's about opening a show with an impressive showing, but not doing too much so as to make the crowd tired. So if the matches that have to follow it have to reach an even higher bar.
Right.
It probably won't if they're just a regular stipulation match.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not saying that a regular triple threat match between these three would solve the problem. You know, it's the concept of that really high, the 15 to 20 minutes of high impact, high spots, really intense, high octane level of match to start, makes it harder for the rest of the card to deliver on what they're doing, especially if there's some moves that overlap. Like I've noticed when we did the, I think it's the Apollo Crews match, which we're going to get to in a couple minutes. A lot of people do frog splashes now. And that's one that, like, you see, if a certain, like, 3 or 4 people are all on the same card, you're going to get, like, 3 or 4 frog splashes. And so it makes it hard when AJ Styles and Sami Zayn and Jeff Hardy, who are all really, really good at doing this type of match. I mean, really, a ladder match between these three, as a WWE fan, is a smart favorite, delectable treat. Is these three going at it in a ladder match. And it was very fun. I'm not saying it wasn't.
But and I understand what you mean. When you are giving people their movesets, you have to make sure that they're different so that if you see multiple moves in the show, you don't lose the feeling of excitement when you see it. Like, it's like, okay, that's the 5th time I've seen the frog splash. I'm over it now.
Or at least, like, have some respect in the boys. At least have some communication lines open. Being like, if let's say that Kevin Owens, for all intents and purposes, is wrestling for the world title, and he knows that Sasha Banks in the second match on the show is wrestling Nikki Cross, right? And they both do the frog splash. If I'm Kevin Owens, I would go and talk to Asuka about if Asuka could just not do it, or Asuka should take the responsibility and say, okay, I'm not going to do it because it's going to mean more later in the match and later on the show, because the higher impact the move, the more it means later, the more people are going to want to watch more. At least that's the way that I view it. That's
right. I get what you mean. It's all about making sure that each and every match on your show has something different to offer.
And builds on that basis. If it's going to make more sense and help get people more invested later on with Kevin Owens, then Sasha Banks shouldn't do the frog splash. And this is also a big problem with everybody doing everything and knowing how to do everything. And there's no, you know, it's like that's not even WWE specific. That's pretty much the entirety of pro wrestling as a whole nowadays is victim to that.
Right, I understand it. It's just a circumstance of what happens with booking in 2020.
Yeah, it's like. But in any event,
it's difficult.
But
let's leave these hypothetical booking critiques of ours out to the side for a second. Were there any particular spots in this triple threat ladder match you want to talk about?
I cringed when Jeff got sandwiched in that ladder upside down.
Oh my God, that was so scary. And it looked so bad.
That was absolutely brutal. And then somebody said something. And then Sammy took a ladder bump in the corner, which was pretty gnarly as well. And I think that's where he got those welts.
Yes, he was. AJ Styles was not holding back, grabbing Sami Zayn by the neck and throwing him against the ladder.
Yeah, and then I think Michael Cole and Graves, they are both. I'm done with both of these two dudes. Let me tell you something. I would rather not listen to either of these two ever again. They hurt the match and they hurt the show.
I got nothing to add.
I don't mind. I didn't mean to be so succinct about it, but I can tolerate Phillips and Byron and Joe. I could tolerate them. They're not as bad. But Cole and Graves specifically, their lines are so obviously fed, and they're bad at delivering them. Corey Graves said something about Sami Zayn being a rubber band man. And then something about Jeff Hardy about he's now addicted to adrenaline. And it's, he's cursed or what, I don't know. They were saying a whole bunch of stupid stuff that that Vince had pumped into their ear or they had been written down in the script. And it was just bad. It was just cheesy. And not even good cheesy, just annoying cheesy. And I was really invested in this match with AJ. They did a great job. That the only thing I didn't care for was that moonsault reverse DDT. It was very obvious Jeff was kind of sitting there waiting for AJ to do it.
Yeah, that one could have been timed better, but otherwise, I think they did pretty well.
Me too.
This finish, though,
it was different. It was definitely different.
I'm going to say this right now. Jeff Hardy, you should let your earlobes heal and close, because this is now the second time that someone has taken advantage of your ears to win a match.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It is proven to be a pretty sizable disadvantage.
But this was brutal. It was not as bad as the time Randy Orton put a screwdriver in Jeff Hardy's ear and then twisted it, but this was pretty brutal. And
that still had to suck.
It was a pretty funny visual of seeing Jeff Hardy trying to enter the ring with a ladder stuck to his ear.
Yeah. Well, I applaud WWE because that might be one of the most creative ladder finishes I've seen.
Right, and Sami Zayn looking like a genius, handcuffing himself to AJ, so AJ has to drag Sami Zayn up the ladder, and then he brought the key with him, unlocked himself, but locked AJ to the ladder too low, so he couldn't stop Sami Zayn.
And I also thought that it was really smart that they made sure that that was something that he had brought with him to the ring in the jacket, like he had prepared for that. That was also very
right.
That was a solid setup, and that's the kind of continuity that I respect. I only wish it were more across the board.
Agreed. And
but
I'm going to say this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles are hurt at all by this, because they're both pretty well established.
No.
They're not going to lose any sort of credibility with this.
I don't think that they're idiots for Sami Zayn just handcuffing him. Yeah, I don't think they look bad at all in this. And Sami, I think it was a smart move. And no offense to Jeff, but he's not really elevating the Intercontinental title at this point. It's no offense to him.
Right.
It's just
right.
The Intercontinental title is what it is at this point.
But I will say this, of the three guys, I think Sami Zayn is probably the one who needs it the most.
Yes,
because his
agreed.
character and the way that he plays it requires him to have the title so he can operate.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I think of anybody who really should have won this, Sami was the person to win it. And
right.
Here's my thing.
Especially with the rumors. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Well, you said something about rumors, and now I'm intrigued. I forget what I was saying. Tell me your stories. What are your rumors, sir?
Because they're going to be switching up the rosters soon, and
the draft.
AJ may go back. AJ may go back to Raw.
Okay.
So
I could see it.
This is another thing too that I wanted to say, that the reason why we're doing this particular review of Clash of Champions 2 weeks after is that we want to watch what they're doing after the pay-per-view, so we can see what decisions they made on the pay-per-view and how they continue with them.
Well, you do.
I don't watch the shows, but I read the recap, and sometimes I watch the YouTube videos, so I have an understanding of what's happening.
Yeah, it depends on the YouTube clip. I have not watched a lot of YouTube clips in a long time, because I pretty much just stick to these shows, and it's helped my sanity. It's kept me.
Yes, it has.
My anger is a lot further down than it used to be, but I will say, I think that it's really, really cringy that Kevin Dunn started pumping in "This is awesome" chants. And it's a terrible chant to choose, because it's very clearly not valuing anyone on your roster by trying to get them invested in the people. You're more invested in calling yourselves awesome.
Don't remind me what the fans have ruined wrestling with.
This is really cringy. And the fact that Kevin Dunn thought this was a good thing to add into this match showcases just how out of touch Kevin Dunn really is. But here's a controversial opinion. I feel bad for Kevin Dunn. Let me explain.
Yeah.
Let me explain.
He's in a no-win situation.
This guy, Kevin Dunn, prior to this, didn't have to do anything like that. Or if he did it poorly, it was covered up by some actual fan chants. But now we know there's nobody in the building. So he's had to work twice as hard during this pandemic to make it seem like it's somewhat... He's had to work harder, I think, than he's ever had to work in the entire 28 years or whatever he's been in with WWE. This year alone, he's probably worked harder than the entirety of his career up to this point. So I feel for you, Kevin Dunn. Having to work this hard is probably tough. But you're still average at it at best.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Way to give a backhanded compliment.
Well, I'm going to still be honest. But it is a compliment. I do still feel bad for him. I still feel for him. But
it's not a job that anyone would really want to have.
No, not at this stage. And now, especially when you've got a film, I'm going to touch on this only once, and I'm going to not mention this later on because the 24/7 segments, not even the commentators can put them over at this point. Just stop. Just stop.
The title needs to be killed with fire.
Listen, this was a cute idea when everyone was like, "Oh yeah, 24/7 title like the hardcore title stipulations. Oh, we really loved those." And then R-Truth won it a gazillion times. And then Rob
47.
Rob Gronkowski won it. And then a whole bunch of other random people won it. And it just, who cares at this point? Drew Gulak and R-Truth, Gulak won it, R-Truth won it back. Does anyone really care about what happened in between? R-Truth was dressed up in a silver wig. You're welcome.
That's funny.
Yes, apparently so. I guess I just don't know comedy. I guess I'm too small-brained for this, guy. You got to help me out here. Well, how was this funny?
It's not. But here's the thing. Even the hardcore title back in its day only lasted about 2 years. So let's not pretend like the hardcore title concept was such a great, big brain idea back in its day. It was a crappy gimmick that had its run, and it was over because no one cared about it anymore. And the
It's true.
It's going to go the exact same way.
It's true, and it's just sad. It's just sad because I like R-Truth as far as he's a pretty good worker. I've always enjoyed Ron Killing's career. His stuff in TNA was great. I don't think he really ever got a chance to shine much anywhere else for what he actually could do as a pro wrestler. But he was NWA champion. He was NWA TNA champion at a time. It was a different time.
That speaks more to how far the NWA title has fallen.
You ought to watch the matches though, Sky, if you haven't. You watch his title matches, man. It is a completely different guy. I swear to you.
If you can find a really good match, then we'll make it the match of the week.
I will. You know what? I'm going to do that. If I'm going to find I'm going to look up on Impact. Hopefully they have it on because they do a lot of full matches. I'm going to try and find some Ron the Truth Killings matches or angles for you to watch. This dude was throwing people over the top rope in an attempt to strangle them with a bull rope in TNA. So there's a lot, and you'd be surprised, man. You would be surprised. So we are going to search for the truth, the real truth, the wrestling R-Truth, the Ron the Truth Killings. We are on the hunt for the truth, and that is what we will be doing for our match of the week. Thank you, Sky. That was a great idea. We are going to definitely take that. But our next match. The 24/7 stuff was still garbage, but here's this match. Zelina Vega versus Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship in the show where every single match is a title match. Did you get that, Sky?
I got it already.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we're all on pace here. We're all on the same wavelength. I have very little to say about this match. I thought it was fine. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't bad. It was fine. And then Vega was a heel at the end, and that was it. I don't really have much else to say, so I'm going to let you take this one, Sky.
I don't have much to say on this either. It was just a wrestling match. There was a babyface, there was a heel, they fought, and there was a finish, and the babyface won.
Oh, it's the only thing I had. Now, I do have something to say about this, just a little bit, and it's about an individual in this match. Again, hot take, another controversial opinion. Asuka is losing stock with me. I really liked Asuka when she first, her NXT Asuka was awesome. Main roster Asuka, for a good portion of the time, was also quite good. You know, got some respect to be in some of the top tier positions. Her match with Charlotte was awesome. I wish Charlotte hadn't won. But, you know, we look at that the way it is. Her and Kairi Sane, we hated at the start, but that ended up being really productive. And they ended up doing really well. And then Asuka just recently has just become the third wheel in a feud that she doesn't really belong in because she's better than it. And here, I thought that she was doing a little more healing than she should have. I thought that she was, in some respects, in a lot of her vocal tones and her facials, behaving like a heel and wanting me to want Zelina actually fight back. There were times in this match that I thought that they were either trying to do like a turn here, or it was just Asuka just doing facials that did not fit what she was trying to do in the match if she were to be the babyface.
And that gets to the biggest issue I have with the women's booking. And I'm going to specifically talk about this for a couple minutes.
Go for it.
The WWE do not know how to book their main roster women.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
As much as we try to give these women a chance to impress us with their wrestling skills and abilities, they are not given any sort of characters that are defining traits that really make us either want to root for them or against them. And just like the men, they will take their characters and change them for the sake of a storyline or the sake of a match without any sort of long-term thinking or planning. To this point, the fact that they do not have Charlotte or Becky right now means that they're only operating with Bayley, Sasha, and Asuka as the main women that really, really matter in WWE.
Yeah.
As much as I like Zelina Vega, as much as I really like Zelina Vega, I did not buy her for 1 second winning the championship.
Well, yeah, not at that rate. No, they know, and they must know this. They have to know this, because this is. I was going to actually say this when we got to what came on later in the night, which was Bayley and Asuka again. But I felt very much the same way, that the women's roster, as far as star power, definitely got exposed tonight for being incredibly thin. And that's on WWE's creative for not having more women prepared or giving them abominable gimmicks that made it so that there was no chance of them ever getting over or liked or being considered in that echelon. And I'm looking specifically at Lacey Evans at that one. You know, I wanted to believe in Lacey Evans, but the gimmick was bad, and it didn't work. And really, like you said, without Becky there, without Charlotte there, and it really, really felt weak. And that's no knock on Bayley or Sasha or Zelina or Asuka, for that matter. But
it's not their fault.
It's depth.
It's just that they haven't been given any sort of long-term booking.
Yeah.
Like, look at SummerSlam. Zelina Vega cost her clients the match, and that's the reason why they flipped from her. So now she got this title opportunity because she was trying to prove herself and prove that she is actually worth something. That is fine, but does that character not sound like a babyface to you?
Yeah, well, exactly my point. That almost seems like maybe they were attempting a turn here, but then, because Zelina, if that is what they were trying to build, then Asuka's, the way that she sold those facials would have made a lot more sense, and Zelina's half comeback would have made a lot more sense, and then Zelina Vega had to do the slap at the end, or had to do that at the end, which was, I thought, was just confusing.
It's just
because they send mixed messages here.
They're doing 50 Shades of Grey booking, and I'm going to address this later on.
This show would be rated TV-14 if they were doing 50 Shades of Grey booking. That is, this show would have been on an entirely different network.
I get your point. That was a bad reference. But this is the problem with not having clearly defined baby faces or clearly defined heels.
Yeah.
Because now I'm confused about what the hell is going on.
Yep.
And it's no knock on the women, but it's just you're hot-shotting Zelina Vega for a title shot, and then who else on Raw is actually going to be a threat to Asuka?
I don't even know who else is on the division right now, because you put, for some reason, because for some reason you thought that putting Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax as a tag team was a good idea.
Because the tag team division of the women's roster is so weak
It's
that you
like,
have to put those two together.
I just don't get it. I wish that Alexa Bliss had nothing to do with Bray Wyatt so she could go back to being a player in the women's division. Because her matches were actually engaging, and what she was doing was engaging as a women's wrestler. I know that's for the SmackDown title, but at this point, I think that division needs her.
I don't know about that, though, because Alexa Bliss was also a woman who was pushed down our throats, like a horsewoman. And as much as I like seeing her wrestle, I'm kind of liking her as a manager right now, or at least a character, because she was pushed down so hard that I didn't want to see her.
Well, I think but have they not taken a good amount of time then from her out of that position?
I mean, I get it, but that's another thing with WWE. Build a actual division. Have depth. Have multiple women who are credible challengers at the same time. So you don't have to have just one or two or three women be at the top.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to get tired of them.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of the horsewomen. And we will get to them later.
Yeah, we're still very early into this show. Up next was Apollo Crews with Ricochet versus Lashley with the rest of the Hurt Business, but Premier League MVP. Honestly, I don't really have much to say about this match either. I
would like to thank the WWE for providing the National Wrestling League a little bit of publicity by having its two newest talents wrestle against each other.
I'm sure they've picked up on it. I have no doubt that Vince watches the show.
Speaking of which, tune in a couple of weeks when we have NWL Judgment Day.
Are we getting this match?
Maybe. You never know.
Maybe. All right. We got a solid maybe. So in any event.
Well, here's the thing. I don't want to rip off some companies that are clearly below my creative geniuses.
Well, and besides, I have Ricochet, so you can't recreate this match.
I can use Prince Puma.
I bet you could.
But this was a solid match between these guys.
Yeah.
But again, I have seen this match before. I don't need to see it again.
I honestly, I haven't seen much of their stuff on Raw and SmackDown, but still, I'm willing to give guys a chance. I understand though. I mean, it's again, there's really no long-term plan for any of this because there usually never is.
You don't understand. Since Extreme Rules, Apollo Crews has wrestled each and every member of the Hurt Business every single week on Raw. It's gotten tiresome and annoying.
Well, you know what they should probably do? What they should do, Apollo Crews should just join the Hurt Business, man. I don't know why he keeps fighting them all the time. I'm just saying.
If you can't beat them, join them. If you can't beat them,
I'm just saying, Apollo Crews would be a fine addition to that group. I really, really like the Hurt Business and what they're about. I want to see them continue to be successful.
And they did a face turn, and I was going to feud with Retribution.
It's I would really, really like to see them continue. Then we got our second moonsault of the night.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, remember that moonsault we did in the opening match? Yeah, this would have felt better if that didn't happen.
But I will say this, the more I watch Apollo Crews, the more I like him.
Yeah, I agreed. He's growing on me.
His wrestling is so good.
He's improved a lot as well,
Yep.
as far as slowing certain things down. I still think he does too much, but I think he's got skill.
Agreed. Did you at all notice that Bobby Lashley's teeth have gotten whiter and whiter?
We got to keep up. If you want to be on top of this business, as evidenced by our main event, you got to have them pearly whites, man. It is a prerequisite.
Hoorah.
That's why Apollo Crews is going a long way in this business. Look at that smile. So, and then there's another submission. Two taps in a row. Lashley gets the full Nelson on Crews, and that's it. I love this as Bobby's finish.
it's a good finisher, but the problem I have with it is that Apollo Crews was on offense for about 70% of this match, and then Bobby Lashley picks up Apollo Crews, throws him down for a slam, and then does the submission, and that's it.
Well,
I would have liked a more bigger build to a finish, but I don't know.
Well, my big issue with this match was that the moves look good, but I would have liked a little more subtleties between these two. You know, I would have rather have seen more in the facials and more in the body language than we got. Because the moves are good, but this was more of a moves dominant match, which is why it kind of ended so abruptly. And I don't think it really had a pitch either way. You know, it didn't really have like any ebbs and flows. It just kind of was like, it wasn't all high octane, but it was like metering in the middle, like room temperature, tap water, all throughout. And then it's over.
Right, and that's the thing. And that's the thing that if Apollo Crews wants to be a main eventer, he needs to work on is he needs to slow down and do a little bit of storytelling in the ring.
Well, that's what I mean by about doing too much, yeah.
He needs to do a little bit of storytelling, sell an injury, sell an emotion, something that can make the fans really gravitate towards him, and then I think he could be a main event wrestler.
But here's the flip side of this too, because this match, in a bubble, right, in a vacuum, this match is everything we just said. But in the grand scheme, if we're going to build off this concept of building up a card, this is match 3. Match 3 does not have to be that good or spectacular at all. You know, it could be an average match just so people kind of like peter out and get amped up for what's coming next. In theory, you know, because they follow it up with this, because they follow it up with Andrade and Angel Garza taking on everybody's favorite, the Street Profits, who are the longest reigning Raw Tag Team Champions of all time. Oh joy. What great champions they have been. I am so excited that these two individuals will go down in history as the longest tag team champions.
It's like when the Ascension were NXT tag team champions. Yeah, you're the tag team champions of the division with no teams.
How is it that WWE has so many people on their rosters, so many talent on their roster, but their rosters are still stupid thin?
Because they don't know how to build people.
They don't want to build people. I really do not. I believe they do not want people built in this company at all. I firmly believe that.
Evidenced by this particular fact, did you know that since WrestleMania 36, 40% of Angel Garza's matches have either involved Angelo Dawkins or Montez Ford?
Oh, God.
40%.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Okay, so Andrade and Angel Garza make their entrances. And then the Street Profits, good Lord, they make their entrance. And then they have the solo cuff gun.
I legitimately hate this company sometimes. Listen, you want to know how Josh again and mine's friendship got started? Because of hatred towards this exact type of crap. And that was 8 years ago, practically. And Sky was right there, like, what? 2 months later.
I was watching along, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And it's gotten worse and worse.
And here we are, and it's the same kind of stuff. There is no purpose to do these cups when nobody is there. If people were in the audience, okay, fine. I got a solo cup from a WWE show. I could say it's a WWE thing. And you know what's the thing that bothers me the most about this? They don't even customize the cups with the Street Profits branding to sell as their merchandising. Considering how much merchandising they do, that seems like an obvious one. And on top of that, they don't bother with those if there were people in the audience and they shot these Street Profits solo cups out, they'd just be regular solo cups. It's, oh, I got a regular solo cup at a wrestling show. Oh, how cool. It's not like the JBL dollar, which I have, by the way, you know, where that was like, all right, fun gimmick. This is just a solo cup. Why?
Exactly. Like, like they have those Street Profits branded cups that they sell on the WWE shop, but they don't want to bother with making all of those cups just for the purpose of doing it for the fans. And it's such an environmental waste just to shoot these cups for no reason.
Those poor custodians. Who's cleaning that up?
Catering for the drink place.
This is like, I don't know. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. It's stupid, gimmicky, hokey crap for the sake of doing it, which is WWE's format through and through.
And to speak to something that I absolutely hated, is that this match that they had tonight at Clash of Champions was probably better than the SummerSlam match, but I still didn't give a shit.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, I thought this was much better than their SummerSlam match, even with the unfortunate finish. But before we get to there, we're at the point where there go the pants. Can we not ever say that again on commentary? This is the second pay-per-view in a row where the Angel Garza ripping off his pants has been a cause of a high spot commentary bit.
And ripping off the pants for who?
Yeah, it was the same thing as like Jeff took off his shirt for nobody. I was like, guys, keep your clothes on. Nobody's cheering your bodies. It's like nobody's here doing well.
Exactly. If we want you to be the sex symbols in front of people, then we'll actually do it. But there are no people here.
Yeah, otherwise, then don't bother. It's, yeah.
Unless it was the girls. Otherwise, you're okay to continue doing ripping off the shirts and pants.
Well, let's just move right on from that. And I don't know, this match to me, it wasn't as offensive as their last one, but there were some things I did not like about this. First of all, I do not believe the Street Profits know how to work a match at all. They do not know how to tag match. But
they're a tag team.
That doesn't mean they know how to tag match. Okay, so at first, everything was fine, right? The baby faces were getting fed. They were shined. It was great. They started going in. It was, they were laying it in pretty well. And then all of a sudden, it just started, they got some heat. Did Andrade and Garza. It was subtle, but it was there. There was they started isolating the corner. It was doing fine. And then they do this mess of a hot tag. I don't know whether you noticed this, guy. So, I think Andrade tried to grab Ford, and Ford tried to, reach for a tag, and he didn't get the tag. And then I think it was, Ford kicked Garza or kicked Andrade and went and did that really jump tag to Angelo Dawkins, but it didn't work because the heel hadn't been tagged first. Neither of them knew what was going on. There was a miscue. Then there was he almost tagged in Andrade, or tagged in Garza, did Andrade, and then he didn't. And then Dawkins came in, and then he did tag Andrade, and then he came in, and Andrade didn't know what to do. So it was just this mess, and whatever was accomplished in what should have been a hot tag, it was so uncoordinated that it was just a complete staggered mess. And then a backslap tag. Once again by Angel Garza onto Andrade. All you have to do is lift up your hand. That's all it takes from the guy who's getting the tag or hitting the ropes. Just move one hand, move the right hand, and tag the hand. It's that simple. There's no need to just slap the... Anyway, back slap tag, and then we get to the move. Do you want to break this down for them as to what happened here?
I will. So Angel Garza gets Montez Ford on the top rope, and he does a Spanish fly, and everything seems fine, right? And then he pushes Ford to his corner. Ford tries to kick his way out. Garza catches Ford's leg, and then he pushes him down, but he overexerts himself, and his hip completely goes. And you can see Angel Garza basically almost with his head on the ground, but his body in the air, trying not to move because he has overextended himself, and he threw his hip out, literally.
Yeah.
He immediately has to tag Andrade, and the referee threw out the X, and immediately a bunch of referees and a bunch of physicians get over to the side to check on Garza.
That was right, and
he's out of this match.
And it was an awkward
right
ass Spanish fly, or C4, whatever you call it, too. It looked awkward. And then the preceding sequence was just, you knew something was up.
Right.
And credit to Garza, he tried. He tried to work through that.
I think Garza, when he did the Spanish fly, he didn't do too bad on his hip, but when he threw Montez Ford, that's when he really hurt himself.
Yeah.
And it was such an innocent-looking move, but it was so awkward in how it happened. I don't blame either of them. It's just that he threw way too hard.
It was a freak accident.
And the good thing is that he immediately was able to tag in Andrade, and they were able to go to the finish.
Yeah.
Which, this finish, I don't know if this is the finish they had planned.
It can't be. It can't be. I refuse to believe that it is. But before we get to the finish, Montez Ford did that jump leaping tag to get a hot tag 3 times in this match. And none of those tags were hot tags. Which it kind of leads into my, I don't think they know how to do a tag match, because they're doing a bunch of over-dramatized stuff at the wrong times, not building any sort of momentum or sequence or feeling or emotion to it, because they think just doing the leaping tag is enough to get that response.
Agreed. I would have to go back and watch their NXT stuff to really get a gauge on them, but I'm wondering who the hell trained these guys, because this is clearly an issue of these guys haven't been told, hey, don't do this all the time, because if you do it all the time, then it's not going to mean anything.
Well, they could, it could be that they were green. As far as I remember, they were not in NXT for very long.
I think they were there for like a year or
yeah,
so.
They
don't remember the exact time.
They were probably pretty green before they got on, where NXT could really harbor them and use them right and really shelter them to help them out. But once you get onto the road like that, they may be that they were just greener than we thought, but they were covered up by wrestling really good tag teams. And then they just showed up on Raw one day. So it's like, I don't know how good these guys are, but to me, I don't think either of them knows how to really do a tag match.
Right, and that's another thing about house shows and why you need them around and why WWE is hurt by the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the house shows, you don't have the opportunity to have these green wrestlers work with other wrestlers who are more experienced and know what they're doing, so that you can get them to build up their experience so they know what to do in these situations.
Well, and it's not just them, though. I mean, this is another thing that's wrestling-wide. I think generally, a lot of the subtleties have been lost because a lot of people now don't want to know the history and haven't learned or don't listen to the guys who came before because they think what they're doing is the good shit. And
it's all a bunch of video game moves, a bunch of video game matches.
And that's why I kind of mentioned last week about video games having this adverse effect to pro wrestling, because it's become something like this, to where they've played the video games and think the video games are the way that the matches should go, rather than really learning the subtleties to it.
Speaking of which, if you guys want to listen to that video, please subscribe and hit the bell on the Court-Martail podcast
Yep,
page.
it's a video we did right before this.
That great video that you did last week about the video games and wrestling.
Merchandising, video games, and wrestling. It's all there for your listening pleasure. And then we get to this finish. And I understand the non-finish given the circumstances, but let me pitch to you this. doesn't this once again reverse the roles of heels and baby faces here? This felt like, I understand why they did it, but this honestly felt like a heel finish.
So to explain what happened, Andrade gets hit by Montez Ford, who does a frog splash, and he gets his shoulder
Third frog splash of the night.
Okay, yes. And then Montez Ford splashes him. He gets his shoulder up, but the referee counts 3 anyways. And I guess they were trying to make Andrade and Garza not look weak, but it just came out awkward.
Well, it came out like the tag champions won, but they didn't really win, did the baby faces, but they're celebrating like they won because they're the baby faces. But
right, like if I was a baby face and I was in a situation where I won the match, but I really didn't win it, I would celebrate, but I wouldn't be happy about it.
Well, I guarantee you, Sky, that if there were a crowd in the audience, the Street Profits would have been booed here. Like, I almost guarantee you that the way that this match finished and the way it is, that the Street Profits would have been heels coming out of this match. And Andrade would look like the babyface. Think about it. His teammate goes down. It's now down to him to win the titles against the 2 men. No matter what he's done, he fights from underneath. He's fighting 1-on-2, and then he gets his shoulder up on top, but the ref doesn't see it. He's been wronged, Sky. He deserves a rematch now, and now the Street Profits, look at these guys. They've won a match, but they didn't win it fairly because they had the referee out of position, and they're cheering and celebrating like they just won, and they deserve to win, but they don't because Andrade now has a case to make that he should get payback on these 2 heels who just ended up screwing him out of the title. This was a switch.
Okay, so I'm going to make 2 points. The first one is that the lasting image of Andrade and Garza was Andrade checking on Garza with the medics at the end of the match because he was worried about Garza's status.
Yeah. That's a real heel move, isn't it?
But second, given the circumstances of the match, I don't blame them for what happened and how they tried to end it. But at least with the Street Profits, they should have realized it would look like a bad look if we try to celebrate like this, because you guys look like the heel. And this goes back to the thing of them not really knowing the psychology of babyface and heel.
Yeah.
And how people should act in the moment. Because they just did a celebration standard babyface, but because of what happened, they don't look like babyfaces, they look like heels.
Yeah. This was yeah, and I understand. Again, I get the finish given the circumstances in the same way that you do, but I think that this completely reversed the heels and the baby faces here. I think that Andrade comes out as an overwhelming baby face here. You know, if they wanted to keep the Street Profits baby face with this, they could have had this. You know, I wouldn't have if they wanted to stay baby face and keep this finish. And this is just spitballing here. They come it down. And they say, and the first thing they do is they get the titles, but they set him down and they walk over to Angel Garza and they're checking up on him to see if he's all right. And even though Andrade's like trying to shoo him away, one of them gets the mic and says, "Listen, man, no matter what just happened, it's never cool to see another man go down like that. No matter what you've done, no matter where we are, next week or on Monday, tomorrow night on Raw, you find a partner." You can challenge for these belts again.
Right.
Because we're an admirable team. We're not afraid of anybody. And we'll take you both down in order to keep these belts. But in the interest of fairness, we're going to give you that shot.
Right. Like, that's a lack of awareness from the Street Profits, but also from WWE, because they should have known that, okay, we have to spitball. How can we make this work? Okay, let's build to another match.
Yeah. And
it's the lack of awareness the Street Profits have. Like, and an experienced team probably would have known what to do.
Yeah. To me, this just didn't work. Now, the funny thing is, if the point of this was to get Andrade over as a babyface and execute this double turn in an alternative universe that this was planned, this would have been a terrific angle. But unfortunately, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't. And So they have inadvertently, and they're lucky that the crowd was not here for this, because if a crowd really was here, they would have booed the Street Profits out of the building.
And let me counter your argument by bringing up something that's happened recently on the last few Raws. So Andrade blamed Angel Garza for being weak and said that he is a man of his own and he'll beat anyone on this roster. So they kept him heel.
Yeah. So you know that this was not intentional.
Right. But the other thing, too, is just... And then Andrade, in that same promo, challenged the roster, and then Keith Lee comes out and Keith Lee beats Andrade. But I want to bring out something important. I don't like politics, right? Like, when Hulk Hogan does his politicking, I hate it.
Well...
Because it's an ugly side of the business.
Because Hulk's going to Hulk. You can't Hulk the Hulk.
But for Andrade's sake and for the talent that he has and how he's been misused by WWE, I really want Charlotte to go to Vince and say, stop messing with my man. I would really like it if Charlotte would just stand up to Vince, because Andrade's booking has not been helped whatsoever. And I think Andrade can be a really good babyface or heel, particularly for the Hispanic community. But he's just not going to look like it being booked by Vince.
Well, it's a fair point, but I honestly don't know how much power Charlotte would even have in that respect.
Well, Charlotte is one of the most marketable women and marketable stars they have on their roster.
Oh, no doubt.
I think she has and she's a flair. She has a little bit of power. Woo.
Yeah, I don't know, though. In today's WWE, I don't know. I don't know. With the way that Vince thinks now, I don't know. With the way that Triple H thinks now, I think Triple H would be a little more amenable to that. Because Andrade was one of his boys.
And Charlotte is one of his girls and one of the first ones to really break out for NXT and WWE.
But with Vince, I don't know.
If anyone could do it, it would be Charlotte.
It's possible. I will say it's definitely possible. But, man, did we miss Charlotte because we had instead Bayley. Here we are, Sky. Bayley got pyro. That was nice. Pyro for who? I don't know. I figured out something about something that they could change in WWE. Something small that would make a lot of difference. And hear me out on this, Sky. What did you think of Becky's? What did you think of Bayley's promo here before Asuka shows up?
It was a nothing promo.
It was very stagey, wasn't it?
There was no conviction in Bayley's voice. Like, it was words that she was told to say and she said them.
Well, and here's the thing with Bayley. I don't think this is no knock on Bayley at all, but I think Bayley here was set up to fail. Because this is a promo and a promo format that will not last, and it doesn't work, and here's why. How do you cut a promo alone in the ring with no fans in the arena? Who are you talking to?
The cameraman?
The cameramen aren't going to respond. So you're basically just ranting out shit to nobody in particular. In this little vacuum, you're in a room yelling to nobody. Whereas if you had an interviewer, you pull somebody out and get them in the middle of the ring. And I'm not saying Charlie Caruso, please, no, not Charlie Caruso, but somebody. Get somebody out there. Hell, it could be Charlie Caruso. I don't care. Somebody. Get somebody out there to interview Bayley. It's like, and be like, Bayley, your opponent, isn't here. Or, it comes out, or somebody who's at ringside says, Bayley, your opponent's here, Nikki isn't cleared to compete. And then Bayley can go into this big old I win tirade, somebody give me a forfeit. In fact, I'm going to challenge anyone on the roster here. This would have been so much better if Bayley could talk to somebody during this promo. Instead of trying to... engage people that aren't in the room.
You're right. It would help to have someone to play off of, even if it's someone like Charlotte Russo, who I agree, I'm not high on her.
I'm not a big fan of hers, no.
But Bayley has no one to react to anything she said. Like, even the people that are on the electric boards, they're on a time delay.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to time it up perfectly.
And I think that's also why she sounded so stilted. Because she's trying to cut a promo that obviously she had to rehearse, but moreover, she has to cut it to nobody. How can you possibly engage somebody or engage an audience like that, especially one that's not there? It's like I felt for Bayley because I realized that it was a mechanically formatted problem that has isolated Bayley into making this promo doomed from the start.
Right, and the circumstances that happened, Nikki Cross was exposed to someone who had a confirmed case of COVID-19.
Yep.
So she could not compete. So I understand the idea that they had. Okay, we're going to have Bayley try to build up her Halo character, and she's going to be so arrogant that she calls out the roster and says, anyone can have a shot for my title.
Yeah.
But it could have picked anyone else except for plot device.
This was just
Because
inserting SummerSlam Asuka into Clash of Champions. Because once again, this match was not about Asuka.
No, she was just there. Like, they could have built it up. Asuka could have beaten Bayley if it wasn't for Sasha, but now Sasha isn't here.
Yeah, and it was at this point when Asuka came out that I wrote down in my notes, amazing how much Charlotte is needed in women's booking in WWE. So imagine
if Charlotte's music had come out and she made her way to the ring.
That would have been something entirely different. That would have been insane. You know, and also great because I think who was it Charlotte that Bayley pinned with that Money in the Bank briefcase?
Yes, it was.
So okay, so that story's right in itself. Now that everyone has forgotten about it, but then they do this just like Cole. Several times Michael Cole was shown on camera being the weenie that Michael Cole really is. And every time it made me smile because I'm like, weenie Cole, because he's a weenie. And then Bayley screamed out after the very weak disqualification finish. Bayley screams out, "Shut up, Michael." And I couldn't have agreed more.
And then she became a baby.
Baby, it's another turn here in the night because Bayley immediately babyface for me. I'm like, yes, Bayley. I love that. It was great.
Okay.
And this, though, the thing that it was about this is they pumped a lot of cheers in, and this would not have gotten anywhere near the amount of cheers that Kevin Dunn pumped into this moment. Everybody looked weak after this. Asuka got fucking taken out. So there's your Raw Women's Champion. Bayley
had the cheat.
Bayley had the cheat. Well, that wasn't even a problem because that's a heel move. But then she gets hit by Sasha Banks. And gets a bunch of chairs. And then Bayley makes a comeback and escapes. So she doesn't look any better after this. And Sasha, who's the one who they're supposed to be getting revenge on, she hits a bunch of chairs, but still doesn't walk away the victorious one. So she looks like, I hit you with a bunch of steel chairs, but I still ended up on my ass. Ha 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 ha. So everybody looked bad after this.
No one got over.
No.
And you want to know something more infuriating?
As if it could get more infuriating.
So on SmackDown, I believe it was last week, Sasha's in the ring cutting a promo about Bayley and talking about the brutal attack that happened on her neck.
Yeah.
And then she says, I'm 100%. She takes off the neck brace, and I'll see you at Hell in the Cell. Which means that Bayley's attack on Sasha Banks, which was the start of the real feud between the two of them, meant absolutely nothing because Sasha Banks borrowed Wolverine's genetic factor and healed her severe neck injury that was career-altering in 3 weeks' time.
Because they have no long-term plans, and they're trying to rush it into a pay-per-view that shouldn't be a pay-per-view because it's destroyed any meaning that the cell actually has. So
right, like they couldn't hold Sasha Banks off TV until like maybe the Royal Rumble. Have Sasha win the Royal Rumble, and then she goes after Bayley after that?
I know, and at this point, the cell doesn't help Sasha and Bayley at all. It's just another gimmick match for them. It's just...
I don't even know if they're going to actually be in the match or the pay-per-view, but either way, it's going to suck.
Yeah, it's...
And that's the thing, is that I am the Bayley apologist of this podcast because I like her more than you guys.
I like Bayley too. I like Bayley a lot. It's not her fault that all of this is. She's actually been quite good amongst the crap that she's had to deal with.
But I'm not going to be able to defend whatever the hell they're going to put on at Hell in a Cell.
Oh, it'll still be a good match. It's just going to be a dumb finish because they're rudderless, creatively bankrupt at this point.
Like you could have planned out and booked the storyline for maybe 6 or 7 months, and now we're just going to hotshot it because fuck it, we need ratings. We need ratings now.
Well,
get this match on the pay-per-view right now.
If they keep doing the amount of babyface and heel turns that they've done tonight, they're definitely trying to go for that swerve angle, and that brings us to Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre in an ambulance match. Now, I have never liked the ambulance match. I thought it was a dumb gimmick the first time I heard about it. It's still a dumb gimmick. This match was not anywhere near the level that was Orton and McIntyre at SummerSlam. And I understand what they were trying to go for here, but to me, it didn't work.
No. Like, they tried. They tried really hard. They just couldn't hit the emotional cadence that they needed to.
And I think I know why. I think I've unlocked the puzzle here. I've solved the Millennium Puzzle of Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre's ambulance match, and I can now say with a level of certainty why this match didn't work. And once again, it has to do with structure.
Right. Well, let's break this down.
Let's break it down. So first of all, Randy Orton is reaching Triple H levels of long entrances. It took like 3.5 minutes for him to finally get down into the ring and dead stare into the camera. Then this match got going. The punches, Orton and McIntyre's punches look better than anyone else's strikes in the entire WWE. The best looking punches coming from these two.
Drew McIntyre's knife edge chops.
Brutal.
My God. Drew McIntyre could be a butcher with his arms and just chopping the meat with his arms.
Imagine a Drew McIntyre and Walter match.
Oh my God, that would be glorious.
Make it happen.
Randy Orton's chest was red after Drew McIntyre gave him 5 or 6 knife edge chops.
Yeah, he got lit up.
And it stayed that way for the rest of the match.
Yep. And then, like not a minute and a half into the match, in comes Big Show. And chokeslams Orton through a table. And everyone's supposed to cheer because Big Show got punted in the head earlier, like a couple months ago. Or whenever it was. So, Big Show gets his comeuppance. Then they fight a little bit more. And then they don't really have much of a semblance of a match here. Unfortunately, it pretty much just goes all the way out there with the Gin. Then, Samoa Joe was starting to talk some clear sense here. Because McIntyre takes out like a steel chair and crutches that are in the side of this ambulance. And Samoa Joe's like, what kind of ambulance is this? Ambulances don't have steel chairs. Yes. Exactly my point.
Not only that, but it was a red steel chair with a American Red Cross symbol on the bottom of it. I can tell you right now, they don't have chairs like that.
Yeah, Samoa Joe talking the truth and speaking the truth. And it was the first time I'm like, Joe, you're breaking through here. It's like, yes.
But here's the thing. I don't view this as a wrestling match the way I viewed their SummerSlam match.
Oh, yeah, obviously not.
This was a fight.
Yeah.
You have to put it in the context of a fight.
Oh,
and
yeah.
from that perspective, I thought it was good, but there were things that just it didn't work. Like,
it's
both
like
of these guys were laying into each other.
They were.
Those chair shots and those crunch shots were nasty.
They were. That Claymore to the door was cool. I love how Juice sold that the rest of the night.
Yep.
Which
And
was,
that's a little thing that people don't do enough, is that they don't sell injuries.
yeah. Well, he may have tweaked it a little bit. He may have legit tweaked it just a hair, but he played it beautifully.
To the match, and he was still selling the fact that he had a fractured jaw from Randy Orton punching him in the head a couple of weeks ago. And Sasha Banks, take notes.
Yeah. And then here we go again. So then they go into the back, and Christian then starts tackling Orton and puts him through like a merch table.
It was a catering table.
Catering table. So Christian was just chilling in the back.
Memorial Day weekend, right?
Yeah. Oh God. Oh God. Tony Schiavone. You poor soul. That's good. So then they do this comeuppance bit. Then they speed up. Then they do these. Then they do the windshield spot, which is pretty nice. They go back out there, and then finally, Drew McIntyre gets some juice on his back, which the match sorely needed.
Randy Orton throwing Drew McIntyre into the windshield of the ambulance was brutal.
That was nice.
And there's something about Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. I don't know what it is, but they have the ability to get juice, and the fact that they can do that really adds to their matches.
It did, and I was really kind of saying.
I don't know if it's on purpose or if it's accidental, but either way, it really helped because Drew McIntyre's back was running with Sami Zayn for the worst injuries of the night.
Yeah. Oh, and it was honestly, obviously I don't want to see anybody like hurt, but the juice here, I didn't even realize how much I wanted it until it actually was there, and I was like, oh yeah, this helps a lot. This makes this whole match feel more like they really have been beating the hell out of each other and laying it in, which they were, but it's psychological.
That's the thing that we really wanted with this match, is that we wanted to be lost in it, and we wanted to seal the realistic nature of two badass fighters fighting for the richest prize and having to put one another in an ambulance. As dumb as the gimmick is, they were really working hard, and they almost won me over because they were really making this fight feel like a real fight.
They tried. They really did try. I thought that they really did a good job of it. This is no knock on Orton or McIntyre. Again, this is a structural thing, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Then,
well, here's the thing. Can I say something?
Yeah.
What broke it up was the cameos by other wrestlers, Big Show and Christian. And there's another one that comes up next.
Yes, and I want to talk about that at the very end when this is finally over. I'll talk about the structure of this match. So then they get up to the top of the ambulance and they have this Mufasa and Scar moment where Drew McIntyre's Mufasa trying to like reach up to the top of the ambulance, and Orton's like, "Long live the king," stomps his foot, And there's that. And then Orton turns around, and there's Shawn Michaels to super kick him and flick him like a child or a nuisance into a setup table that we didn't even get to see because Kevin Dunn couldn't get a camera on it.
No. That was on purpose. They were trying to make sure that no one saw the crash pad.
Which was a very obvious crash pad, by the way.
I will at least give credit to WWE for trying to hide it, and not like AEW, who's just like, okay, here's the crash pad.
Yeah, let's just wheel it out.
Let's just wheel it out so Sammy Guevara can take a bump in it so we can get Matt Hardy down after he had a concussion.
Yep. This just didn't work.
And then did you notice they go to picture-in-picture, and then they come back and Randy Orton's in the middle aisle, which is nowhere near where he fell.
Yeah.
So clearly they edited it so that Randy Orton was actually there.
Yeah, and then Orton hits what could be one of the worst RKOs I've ever seen. It was not that good. Then I'll talk. Okay, I guess I need to bring this all together before we get to this finish, because here's why this didn't work. Two reasons that kind of are intertwined. The cameos wouldn't have been bad if you had grouped them all together at the very end, where Orton had fought all his way through, done some dirty stuff, they had beaten the hell out of each other, and then Orton gets his comeuppance, he gets ganged up, gets done that, and then he gets thrown into the ambulance like the trash that he is. There you go, good riddance, we helped you out, Drew. Not that you needed our help, but, you know, that would have been more, if they were going to do these comeuppance cameos, group them all together. Get them in one angle instead of giving them all these separate moments, because these separate moments diluted the heat that Orton got, to the point where it's just, when by the time that Shawn Michaels had come and gone, it didn't have any meaning. It just broke up the energy of the match. So it never really, it never got to that fever pitch that you could have gotten with this.
Agreed.
So that's where I get, but here's again, this is what's so weird about this Clash of Champions. So every single one of these guys came out to help Drew McIntyre from the beginning. In what was supposed to be a match where Drew McIntyre held his honor and doesn't have to have help from anybody because he's a fighting champion and he can beat Orton anytime, anywhere, even with a fractured skull, but then gets help from the Big Show and Christian and Shawn Michaels. And Orton is still, God, you got to admit, he's fighting back pretty hard. He's still coming through and coming back from all this. Look how vicious he is. He threw Drew through the windshield. He's working as hard as he can here. Our man Randy's really impressing people here. Oh, and then right as Orton is trying to put him in, a thumb to the eye by the champion. That's not very sportsmanlike, even in an ambulance match. And then they threw him in the ambulance, and that was it, and Ric Flair drove him off. I swear to God, this is the fourth match on the night where the heel and babyface roles were switched.
Like, I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to do a comeuppance and all's fair in love and war type story. But unless you're completely invested in it to the point where you are lost in the story, it doesn't make sense.
If I were a casual fan watching this, to your point, I would have been cheering Randy Orton if I were a casual fan.
Because look at the odds he has to fight. He has to fight back against the Big Show and Christian and Shawn Michaels, as well as the champion, Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre, whether we want to admit or not, is the bigger guy. He's the taller guy. He's the heavier guy. He should be the guy that should be kicking Randy Orton's ass. And look at all the help he's getting.
That to a casual fan who was just tuning in for this for the first time, I would think that Randy Orton was the one to cheer. And again, this is no knock. I know Orton is great as a heel, and he'll be heelish going forward, and Drew's going to be a great babyface going forward. Again, not their fault. This was just structurally backward. Again. For the fourth time this night.
And this is the crux of the whole thing that this match relied on. And this is the problem that WWE has. Because they took the genie out of the bottle, and you can't put the genie back in.
That's right.
You had to rely on kayfabe that Randy Orton did these legends so badly that they all wanted revenge on Randy Orton. And you don't have that emotional cadence because you don't believe for 1 second that Randy Orton actually hurt any of these guys.
Well, it doesn't help that Shawn Michaels didn't even wear a neck brace like a week after he was kicked in the head to say that he doesn't want to wish ill on anybody. But
there was no sort of build of kayfabe that made you want to believe that Randy Orton did these legends dirty, so these legends were getting payback.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, it's just...
And to continue this theme, on the following Raw, they had Randy Orton attack all 4 of these legends because they interfered in its match.
That seems kind of fair, doesn't it?
Except that it happened off screen.
Oh, of course. Of course.
They were in a room, all 4 of them playing poker. Ric Flair, Christian, Big Show, and Shawn Michaels. That's a fucking deal. And the lights go out. Randy Orton attacks them, dressed as a janitor, by the way, with night vision goggles.
It's custodian, dick.
And then, yeah. And then Randy Orton comes down and says, "Drew McIntyre, you did this." But Drew McIntyre didn't ask these guys to help him.
It's just,
and
they just their ass up is WWE's creative. They just do not get it at this point, because they got a bunch of goobers writing for them, and what's even worse than that is that Vince goes and rips it all up and writes his own shit, which doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You had 4 heel and babyface double turns tonight that you did not intend because you're not focusing, and you're so lucky you don't have an audience, because the crowd would have been ambivalent to this finish. It wouldn't have been a boo. It wouldn't have been a cheer. It would have been flat.
Oh yes.
It would have been flat.
Right. And they're building to a match against the 2 of these guys in Hell in a Cell.
Which will be way better. Which will be way, way better, I imagine.
Now, here's a question for you. Do you think they take the title off Drew McIntyre and put it on Randy Orton?
They could, but I'm gonna guess no. I think that they're saving Drew for either a Brock Lesnar rematch, or we're going to see him and, like, Braun Strowman. And Braun's going to take the title off him in this shakeup or something like that. Sadly, I don't want that to happen. That's what I'm suspecting will happen.
Here is my guess. I'm guessing that Randy Orton takes the title off Drew McIntyre. Edge wins the Royal Rumble, and they build to a WrestleMania match.
Oh, maybe. They might.
I don't know. The only thing is that if that is the case, I kind of feel bad for Drew McIntyre because he hasn't had the chance to main event as champion. He's kind of the co-main event a couple of times, but that's not the main event.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I mean, it's tough with Drew. But, that's what they do to the WWE title in general. They have made the WWE Championship feel like the secondary title to a candy corn belt. In our next match.
Having said that, though, the next match deserved the main event.
This match was actually quite entertaining. This was, I believe, more of an angle than a match. It was an angle that used a match to kind of set the angle. But Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso for the Universal Championship. Roman and Paul look so good together. It's great. This was great. I love the fact that Roman Reigns no longer wears the vest. I don't think he needs it. I think he looks better just shirtless. Though I have one complaint about this whole match, and then I'm gonna let you take over.
Okay.
They tried a little too hard to act in this match. Just a little bit. I think they were natural at it because they are cousins, so they were able to kind of like speak the way that they normally would speak. But I think they tried a little bit too hard to act. But that being said, it was still a great piece of business, and it got Roman over as a dominant heel, which was exactly what he needed.
This was the match that cemented Roman Reigns as the current best heel in wrestling.
It was great.
I don't think you would argue with that, right?
I mean, I do have a soft spot in my heart for MJF, but that's but that's just me.
I think,
but as far as
I think-
top name, top draw heel, yeah, without a doubt.
the video package before with their childhood videos and childhood stories.
That worked
being
really
told,
well.
It was really beautiful, and it set the stage. Jey Uso, excited, happy to have a championship opportunity to prove that he is not a twin, but he is his own man, carrying the Lady, what was it called? What's that neck collar?
I don't remember the full-fledged name of it.
But he was wearing that as a proud symbol of his heritage, and he was going to prove that he can be at the top of the mountain. Roman Reigns, stoic, no emotion, just a guy who's here to kick some ass.
Down to business. This match, I mean, these two, they worked it so well, and you could tell that Reigns was kind of carrying Jey a little bit here, only because Jey is more of a tag guy, so he doesn't get tons of those one matches. So you could tell Roman Reigns was really leading this, and it goes to show just how much more impressive Roman Reigns as a worker has become in the years since we all despised the way that he was pushed. He's really quite good.
Fair.
He's really quite good.
Some of it was fair, especially when he was very green. I want to say around 2014.
Oh yeah,
he hadn't
agreed.
He hadn't become a worker that could carry a match, but now by 2016, 2017, 2018, he's gotten that experience.
He's gotten so much better.
Who can carry lesser talents. I'm not saying that Jey Uso is a lesser talent. He's probably one of the best tag team wrestlers of this generation.
Yeah, but it did tell the story in this match that Jey was not in Roman Reigns' league of wrestling. And that was the point, you know? And that fact that they framed this whole match around that was a really nice touch.
And the other thing, too, I don't know if this was deliberate or not, but did you notice that with this particular match, they worked it very, very slow?
Yes.
And every other match on this card was fast. But because it was so slow, it stood out more because of it.
It had this definitely had emotional fever pitches to it. This was probably the best emotional piece of business as well. You know, you really could get invested in what they were trying to express. And it shouldn't take to the main event to get to that point. Just saying. Like, obviously you want the main event to have the most emotional investment, but that doesn't mean that you can't have it in other places.
Right, but I think it helped that it was the only one that did.
Agreed.
It really had that impact.
Yeah.
Now, you say that Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton throw great punches, but I would argue that Roman Reigns is almost as good.
Oh, he throws a mean punch. He throws a real mean punch.
Yep. And the way that Roman was working, he was just picking apart Jey Uso, throwing his punches, slamming him across the ring, continuous clotheslines. He was just picking apart Jey Uso. And the whole time he was doing it, he showed no emotion. Whenever he was talking, it was always trash talk. But it wasn't trash talk to get a rise out of Jey Uso. It was to demean him.
Yeah, it was to him, to Roman Reigns, the way that I took it is that this had nothing to do with their personal life. You know, he still loved and respected him. But at the same time, you know, as the top guy, you know, you got to keep your place. And keeping your place is a business affair. So he had to keep himself all business, which is why he looked so emotionally shut off and emotionally distant. And that added so much to this.
Right. And something that was also interesting, and we've mentioned it before on the show, but with this particular match, Roman Reigns' character is a guy who's fighting to stay on top because he wants to provide for his family. And that would be a babyface type story. But Roman Reigns demeaning Jey Uso the way he did, demanding that he say that he is the tribal chief, twists the goodness of his feeling story and makes him a heel.
Yeah, and with Jimmy Uso coming out and like throwing in the towel, I thought that was also another that was a great finish to kind of keep this whole thing going between these three. And finally being like, fine, if you happy now, like, fine, you're the chief. You know, your ego satisfied, and Reigns getting the thing, the lay putting on his
from
Paul Heyman getting that put on. Oh, it was just, this was like a very, very sweet cherry on top of very sloppy waffles that the syrup has already penetrated and turned into something of a disgusting paste. But still tasty. It still tastes decent. It's just the consistency was blah. But then this whipped cream and cherry on top was absolutely fantastic. Great piece of business between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso here. In a match that I was skeptical going in.
But you have skipped a couple of things that we really need to point to because they're very, very important. So, something I forgot that we should mention. So Roman Reigns, he starts this match, he's on top, Jey Uso makes his comeback, and for a very split second, on the second frog splash he does, which, yes, I know it's a frog splash, whatever. On the very frog splash, the way Roman Reigns kicked out, you almost thought that Jey Uso would win.
Yeah. Yeah,
But Roman Reigns kicked... Sorry, continue.
No, I was... do you think?
And then Roman Reigns kicks out, and he continues his beating. And he's not satisfied with the win anymore because he feels that he's already won the match. He wants Jey Uso to say the word, say he is the tribal chief. And Paul Heyman outside says the words, "You are the tribal chief. You are the tribal chief."
I thought that was great.
But I think this is a foreshadow because Roman Reigns said, "I don't need to hear it from you. I need to hear it from him. So shut up." I think eventually Roman Reigns is going to decide that he doesn't need Paul Heyman anymore. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I feel like this is a temporary alliance, and eventually it's going to lead to a face-off between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns.
At WrestleMania.
See that.
Oh my God.
I don't think so.
Could you imagine, Sky, if they booked 3 years apart, each of them, WrestleMania 31, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, where Brock destroys Roman. WrestleMania 34, where Brock beats Roman again. But finally, WrestleMania 37, a heel Roman Reigns beats Brock Lesnar.
It's the Stone Cold Austin.
It's the story of a lifetime.
It's the matches we did not ask for.
You know for a fact that WWE is going to look at that and be like, "Oh yeah, we planned that the whole time. We were ready." We back in 2011 we had this idea. Back when we just saw Roman Reigns in FCW, we're like, yeah, we're going to have the big 3-match thing with Brock Lesnar. We were ready for it from the beginning. You know how many documentaries, Sky, they're going to make about a 9-year feud that they planned from the very start?
Okay, first off, no.
You watch, Sky. This is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do.
I don't doubt that they're going to make a DVD of this trilogy, but no. But second thing, Roman Reigns starts threatening Charles Robinson, the referee, because he continuously beats up Jey Uso to the point of delirium. And Charles Robinson's pulling off like, stop it. You can't have to do this. And Roman Reigns threatening Charles Robinson, if you don't do your job right now, I'm going to whoop your ass and make sure you don't have a job. This was Roman Reigns threatening everyone and everything because he is the top dog.
It was great. This was the Roman Reigns we've been waiting for years.
Right, but here's a question I have for you. Do you think they build to a Brock Lesnar match at WrestleMania or a match against Dwayne Johnson at WrestleMania?
Hard to say.
You can go with either one.
Depends on what The Rock's doing. Depends on what, because The Rock is a busy man. It depends on what The Rock is doing.
But I feel like it could lead to a match where The Rock, seeing Roman Reigns torture his family, decides that he's had enough and he's going to defeat Roman Reigns to protect the family from this person who has taken over.
Oh, good God. Can you imagine if The Rock wins the Royal Rumble?
That's a possibility.
Think about it. He could win. The Rock could win the Royal Rumble and be like, I didn't need to win the Royal Rumble, but I'm here to kick some ass, and this was the best way to do it.
No. The Rock winning the Royal Rumble because he wants to save the family from Roman Reigns.
Is that or The Rock keeps asking Roman Reigns to fight him, and Roman Reigns is like, nah, I'm already the chief. You're the old chief. You don't have to do this. I don't gotta prove nothing to you. And then The Rock's like, fine, I'm gonna win the Royal Rumble, you son of a bitch, and then you're gonna have to fight me. And then he does, and then we get that match.
But heel Roman Reigns leads to so many possibilities.
It does.
Now, on the SmackDown after this, Roman Reigns said that he was not happy because Jey Uso did not say the word. Jimmy Uso did. So they're going to wrestle at Hell in a Cell again. And this time, Roman Reigns is going to make Jey Uso say that he is the tribal chief.
It's going to be something, man. I'm actually, amazingly, some invested in something WWE's got going. And that's this Roman Reigns and Jey Uso feud. And we will see where it goes.
Now, do you want to hear my final bad joke about this storyline?
Go for it.
So me and a couple of friends of mine were saying, that promo was good, but imagine if Roman Reigns had said, and after I whoop your ass at Hell in a Cell, I'm going to make your wife and kids call me daddy.
No, Samoa Joe.
And then it went to a thing of Roman Reigns defeats every person and takes their wife and kids as his own family.
Oh, God. Good God.
He beat the Fiend, so he gets JoJo and Bray Wyatt's kids.
I think
he beats Jey Uso, so he gets his wife and his kids. Imagine if he beat Daniel Bryan, and then he gets Brie Bella and their kids.
He sits there going, look at this tribe I've accumulated. I'm the chief of all of these people. Every one of them.
All my wives and all my children.
This is, no. Let's leave that to AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, shall we?
No, that's another one. Roman Reigns should beat AJ Styles and get Angie and his kids.
Oh, God. All right, I'm gonna cut this off now. I'm gonna tourniquet this wound, and I'm gonna.
Leaving the jokes aside, though, heel Roman Reigns leads to so many great possibilities.
Oh yeah, and I just wish we had it sooner. So overall, Sky, final thoughts. Clash of Champions. What do you think?
So I'm going to give a score out of 10.
Okay.
I want to be optimistic and give it a higher score than SummerSlam, which I believe I gave a 5 out of 10.
Which I think it deserves.
But I don't know if I can really give it a higher score because as much as I enjoyed the main event, the rest of the show was a slog to get to, and the lack of wrestling logic really hurt it. So I don't know if I can give it a higher score.
I suppose it's true.
I'm going to be conservative, and I'm just going to say 5 out of 10. Again, I really like this show, but there were so many things that knocked it down and made it not quite as good. That's all in the details.
Well, the main event was absolutely terrific, but I'm inclined to agree. It's just they did so many turns. They had everything ass backwards as far as who should be getting what kind of reactions, and it's only in really reviewing it at length like this, Sky, that you realize just how much they did that all night. But all in all, there was nothing offensive on this show. There was nothing that made me rage on this show. I gave, I think, a 4 out of 10 for SummerSlam. This I'm going to give a 5.5. Because, yes, the wrestling logic was backwards, but all in all, everything was fairly airtight as far as the actual matches themselves was concerned. There wasn't anything that was slap in the face insulting. So, better on this show. We'll have to see what Hell in a Cell brings, but at this moment, it is time to take our first commercial break. Sky, thank you so much for being here for the review. We will see you next week for ACPW and NWL.
I look forward to seeing all of you when the next show arrives, and tune in for NWL Judgment Day.
That's right, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you very much for listening. My name is your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, and we will be right back after these messages.